The movie opens up with a man named Will arriving in Spain for a vacation with his family. To his surprise, instead of his brother, his father Martin was waiting for him outside of the airport. Since the two of them don't have the best relationship, they spend the entire drive in silence. At some point, Will answers a call from work, but dismisses the person on the other end, knowing that his father does not like him getting distracted with work while on a family vacation. Soon, they arrive at the dock where his mother, brother Josh, and his girlfriend, Dara, are waiting for him. He greets all of them before heading in the sailboat to clean up. Later that night, as everyone gathers around the table for a family dinner, Will receives an important phone call. The person on the other end delivers upsetting news, and although Will tries not to let it ruin his mood, everyone can tell that there is something on his mind. Finally, he ends up confessing that his company is going bankrupt. Hearing this, his family wraps up the dinner quickly and heads off to bed for the night. The next morning, Martin tries to put Will to work, but he is distracted working on his cell phone. Eventually, they anchor near a small town and Martin tells Will to take care of the helm while he fixes up the sails. All of a sudden, two men driving a smaller boat whiz past them, causing the waves to start moving their boat. Martin tries to warn Will, but it is too late and one of these sails swings, causing Dara to fall over and hit her head. Angry, Martin throws Will's cell phone overboard and starts screaming at him until his mother pulls the two of them apart. Needing to cool down, Will informs his family that he is going into town and swims towards the shore. In town, he buys an antiseptic for Dara and spends more time than necessary there. By the time he gets back, he notices that the sailboat is gone. Will asks the locals if they have seen his boat, but either people can't understand him or they haven't seen the boat. He even swims around looking for any signs of the boat, but it seems as if it has vanished. After some time, he spots the sailboat sitting behind a small hill, hidden from everyone's view. However, when Will goes inside, he finds that the boat is empty and has been thrashed as if someone was looking for something. Knowing that his family is not safe, Will rushes to the local police station and asks them for help. When they come to know who he is, the police captain calls someone and then tells Will that they are going to take him to someone who knows what happened to his family. Not suspecting anything, Will follows them in the dark until they reach the beach again, where a man is waiting along a small yacht. The man reveals that he knows where his family is and that he can take him to them. The police officers then start pushing Will towards the yacht, but he puts up a fight and manages to escape using one of the patrol cars. He does not get far as he gets surrounded by more patrol cars, and they deliberately crash into him, causing him to become disoriented. The officers pull him out of the car and give him a good beating until someone stops them. Will opens his eyes to see that his father is fighting the officers. Martin picks Will up and helps him into another patrol car before racing off. Once Will is able to make sense of things, he asks his father where the rest of their family is, to which he replies that he does not know. This does not sit well with Will and he starts demanding answers. Martin eventually reveals that he is an undercover CIA agent. He thinks that someone has come back to haunt him just as he receives a phone call from another CIA agent. He agrees to meet the agent sometime later and makes his way to a safe house. Once he helps patch up Will, he asks his son to drive him to the meeting spot. They arrive in an isolated spot where Martin meets up with Jane Carrack. Martin asks her if she has set him up, but she does not give him a straight answer. She then asks him who is after him, and he reveals that the people they took the briefcase from want it back. Jean promises to help him with what she can and claims that the briefcase is no longer in her hands. As Martin heads back to his car, a sniper named Gorman shoots him in the chest, immediately killing him. The sound of his father hitting the ground pulls Will to reality, and he quietly climbs out. He notices that his father is dead just as his phone starts ringing again. The ringing of the cell phone draws Gorman's attention to Will, and he starts shooting at him. Will somehow manages to take his father's cell phone and gun before making a run for it. Gordon continues to chase him until Will runs into the police officer while still holding the gun and tries to ask him for help. However, with a gun in his hand, the officer assumes that Will is going to shoot someone. He gets Will to drop the gun, but all of a sudden, Gorman shoots him in the chest, killing him as well. Hearing the commotion outside, several officers show up and start chasing Will. An arrest warrant is issued for Will, but he manages to leave the gun under a newspaper in a dumpster and makes his way to the American embassy. There, a man tells him that the embassy has been unable to find records of his father being there. They can only help him by providing him with a lawyer. Frustrated, Will tries to explain the situation again. But this time, the telephone rings and the man is ordered by Jean to let Will walk free and meet with her. After the chaotic 24 hours that he had just spent, Will does not trust Jean and thinks that she might have been responsible for his father's death. When Jean invites him to take a ride with her while she explains everything, Will is left with no choice but to join her. Sometime later, Will notices that Jean is asking more questions than answering them and becomes suspicious of her intentions with him. He pretends to get sick and kicks off Jean's driver before making a run for it. He gets on a bus, and once he is seated, he goes through his father's cell phone to find answers. Instead, he finds that his father made calls to and received calls from only 2 people. At that moment, the cell phone starts ringing again, and when Will answers it, the man who had kidnapped his mother, and Josh tells him to put Tom on the phone. Then, he hears his mother's voice in the background before the phone is handed to her. She tells Will to put his father on the phone, and he is forced to reveal that Martin is dead. As his mother breaks down crying, a man takes over the call once again and reminds Will to tell his father that he cannot keep delaying their meeting and that he needs to return the briefcase. Confused, Will tells the man that his father's name is Martin and he does not know who Tom is, but he hangs up the phone. Since Will does not know what to do next, he calls up one of the 2 contacts on the phone. Diego's niece answers the phone and gives Will the address. Soon, he reaches Diego's office, but his niece, Lucia, acts strange. All of a sudden, Jean's driver walks out from Diego's officer and tries to kill Will. However, by this time, Will had learned how to defend himself and managed to stab the man to death. He then asks Lucia where else her uncle could be, and she takes him to her uncle's house. They silently walk in, and right off the bat, Will can tell that there is already someone in the house. He makes Lucia near the door and heads for the kitchen. To his surprise, Jean and Gorman are already there, and they are talking about getting rid of Will. When Jean spots him, she tries to explain that his father would have killed her as well if the roles were reversed. He was putting national security at risk by returning the briefcase to the terrorists who had kidnapped his family. She promises him that if he cooperates with them, she will make sure that his family is returned safely. Will keeps his gun pointed at the 2 agents, and just as Gorman is about to shoot him, Lucia comes in with her gun and blindly starts shooting at them. This gives Lucia and Will the chance to run upstairs until they reach the rooftop. They notice too late that there is no way down from the roof, but Will uses wires and ties them around Lucia before letting her jump off. She manages to climb into another apartment, while Will jumps off with the wires loosely tied around him, as Gordon reaches the rooftop and starts shooting at them. The wires are not able to bear his weight, and he falls to the ground. Barely conscious, Lucia makes him sit on the back of her motorbike, as the 2 of them avoid getting caught by Jean. They get into another accident when Jean closes in on their bike, but as soon as the crowd starts gathering around them, she leaves. Lucia takes an unconscious Will to her friend, who patches up his wounds. When Will regains consciousness, Lucia has his phone and asks him why he has a picture of Tom Keaton on his phone. He responds that it is a picture of his father. Once Martin's death registers for her, Lucia reveals that Martin was her father as well, making the 2 of them half-siblings. He then heads to the location given to him by his family's captors, and a man takes him away in a car after knocking him unconscious. At first, he is interrogated by a man named Zahir, but he later comes to find out that Zahir is part of the CIA as well. The CIA had detected a dirty agent among them and wanted to fish them out. The briefcase was part of an elaborate scheme involving both his father and Jean. Zahir reminds Will that his family will be handed over to the CIA if he fails to bring Jean to them. Once again, he is knocked unconscious and is left in the city. Will goes to meet with Lucia and fills her in on everything that took place. Lucia tells him and the club owner, Maximo, that she will leave a digital trail to lure Jean to them. Sure enough, after she pays for a couple of drinks, Gordon shows up at the club, where he is taken down by Mamo's men and interrogated by Will. Gorman refuses to say anything, and when he is left alone, he manages to break out and rushes to meet with Jean. Will secretly follows them to a garage where a deal is happening, but he is suddenly interrupted by Zahir, who tells him to leave. As soon as Jean hears their conversation, she kills the buyers and rushes to take cover as a crazy shootout takes place. In this chaos, Gordon gets killed, but Jean manages to escape. Not willing to give up, Will and Lucia chase after her in their car. But at the last moment, their car flips. Jean survives the crash and is about to kill the 2 of them when she is shot dead by Zahir. The movie ends with Will reuniting with his family and being offered a job as a CIA agent. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe, hit the like button and the notification bell to see more videos like this.